Welcome to Haltech Elite NSP Training Part 33. This training tutorial, we're going to take a look at our closed loop Lambda Control. This is going to allow us to make sure that we're always hitting our target air fuel. We need to have a wideband installed. We're going to go through how to set up and configure everything here so you can implement closed loop Lambda Control on your engine. Without further wait, let's jump in so we can check this out. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at working with our closed loop fuel correction with our Haltech Elite systems. Our closed loop fuel correction allows us to have a wideband input we've wired into our Haltech, whether it's a CAN-based wideband or an analog voltage coming from a wideband gauge. We're able to take that reading from our wideband and we can compare it against what we're specifying we want our target lambda or target air fuel reading to be at a given load and RPM point. And the Haltech's going to be able to calculate a difference, or known as a percentage of error. Now, based on that error, it's going to know how much additional fuel that it needs to add in order for our actual air fuel reading to match what we're requesting from our target reading. So whether you're going to be your actual lambda reading to your target or actual target air fuel reading to your target air fuel, whatever the unit scale is going to be, it compares that. It calculates a percentage difference. And the percentage difference that it calculates, it knows what to correct in our fuel delivery so that your actual reading matches your target. And that's going to be using something called our short-term fuel trim. And we'll see how this works here when we get things going and we configure our closed loop correction and have everything set up. Now, the closed loop correction with its short-term fuel trim adjustment will allow us to deliver the proper fueling to our engine. So we'll find that the target and the actual should match each other really, really close. And then whatever that deviation or the difference, that's going to be taken up in the short term. So as we're driving through the table here, depending on whatever load or RPM points we're at, our short-term correction here is going to be making these adjustments in real time and constantly correcting our injector pulse width. Our goal is to not rely on the short-term fuel trim to make massive changes. What we'd like to see is that we're making small changes, maybe plus or minus 5% correction throughout the entire table here. That's going to be signifying that the base values, whatever the fuel strategy you're going to be tuning in, whether it's going to be speed density volumetric efficiency, fuel flow rate, injection time-based, or even mass airflow, we want to find that we have minimal corrections. That means that our base fueling is dialed in correctly. We've done our job as a tuner and dialed our tables in here. And then we'll find that there is minimal adjustments and corrections that's allowed to make. Now, every day you run the engine, you'll find that there are small deviations and corrections that you can't account for. And that's what the short-term correction is supposed to do. Go in and account for these small deviations or differences in day-to-day situations so that it's making minimal changes, but it's keeping your fueling consistent and repeatable. Really, really going to be key in the long-term operation running your Haltech on your engine. Now, the other aspect of our closed loop correction is going to be allowing us to look at how far things are off by. So again, we have the actual reading from the wideband, the target, what we want to go ahead and run at, figures out that percentage of error, it makes its adjustments, it's making a certain amount of correction. It's going to tell us how far off our airflow or the fuel model is within the volumetric efficiency modeling, or if we're going to be dealing with mass airflow or even injection time or fuel flow rate based. That's going to be showing us directly how much the fuel table's off by. But either way, it's going to be telling us how far our fueling is off by. And we can then use that as a guide to go in and dial in and tune the fuel table or the airflow model. Essentially, if it's adding 20%, let's say in our correction here, that's telling me that my table here is probably 20% off. I need to go and increase that by 20%. The nice thing is that we can actually go in here and make adjustments using the P key, which is percentage, and literally, if this is showing us it's adding 10%, we can add 10% to the area we're operating in, and then it'll get the base values much closer. We're going to look at that calibration technique in the next tutorial. This tutorial is just going to be focusing on understanding the concepts here, making sure we have the fundamentals set up and the basics, so making sure we have a wideband configure, making sure we've turned on the wideband correction, and then the O2 correction, and then making sure that we have things like our target lambda here set up and configure it properly so that when we want to use the closed loop function, everything is going to be working as intended. So let's jump in here and let's take a look at the very basic fundamentals of getting things configured. And that's going to be making sure our target air fuel or target lambda table is going to be configured and set up properly. Now this table here, it's going to be based on engine speed on the axis on the side. On the top is going to be based on manifold pressure. We have flexibility to change this to whatever we'd like Traditionally speaking, we are going to have engine RPM here and then manifold pressure. If you're dealing with alpha end tuning where your main fuel table here is set for your fuel load as throttle position, then you probably want to consider changing also your load scale up here to throttle position. And that's going to allow you to track, because typically manifold pressure with a car that... Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here. And you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.